What's up, guys? Alpine Gremlin again here. And enough of you expressed an interest in seeing War Thunder footage on my last video that I decided to kind of put together a little bit of a gameplay slash newcomers tutorial-esque kind of video. So this is probably going to be longer than my average video because I do have quite a bit to discuss, and then I obviously have to give you guys some gameplay. Now, for those of you that just want to see some gameplay, I will put an annotation in the video to let you know at what time that is, so you can go ahead and skip through all this, kind of newer player garbage. But if you're interested in War Thunder or you're a new player just starting out, then I would highly recommend watching this first half or so. So anyway, I'm going to be obviously making comparisons to the closest analog, which is World of Tanks. Many of you I know are coming from World of Tanks, so I'll be making a lot of comparisons to World of Tanks to help you kind of understand how the stuff works. So obviously we're in the hangar, garage, whatever you want to call it. And I guess the first thing we're going to want to talk about is the slots down here. Now, in World of Tanks, whenever you buy a vehicle, you have your garage slots. And every vehicle has its own crew that comes with it, with crew slots. Well, in War Thunder, it's a little bit simpler than that. In War Thunder, these slots are actually your crews. And instead of crews shifting around vehicles, like how you can train crew members for different vehicles in World of Tanks, well, the tanks are what swaps between the slots. There is no specific crew for a specific vehicle. Whenever you plop a vehicle in this slot, the crew basically takes over the vehicle. And on the plus side, retraining only costs silver, not gold, so you don't have to pay any real money to do it. Well, so basically, this is my King Tiger with the 105. Basically, would be a fully upgraded KT in World of Tanks. Well, if I wanted to, I could take this Tiger out of rotation and I could change the vehicle up. You see what I did there? I highlighted it. You could see the little information card pops up, and then right at the top here we can go to change vehicle. And you could see I could put any vehicle that I have researched and bought in service. Now, you could see some of these vehicles have not yet been passed what's called conversion training for this slot. Because the crew there is some cost. The crew does have to train to be able to operate the vehicle. So you can see the Hetzer here. Because I haven't put the vehicle into service with the Hetzer, because I haven't put the vehicle into service with this crew yet, the Hetzer would be 2,200 Lions, or rather 22,000 Lions. The Jagdpanzer IV would be 30,000 Lions. Stug, all these vehicles. But you could see vehicles that don't have a cost are vehicles that I've already past the conversion training with. So if you wanted to put, say, my Panther or my Tiger II with the Porsche turret, I wouldn't have to pay again. I could just swap it out, and then you can see, I'll just show you right here, swap it out, and then there it is in the garage ready for service. And you can do this with any crew, as long as you have already passed the conversion training. You could just swap it out. Now, another important thing to note is these are not, as I said before, because these are just crew slots, you can see all the vehicles that I have unlocked and have bought. There are far more of them than you actually see displayed here, and the reason for that is because this is basically your team. When you go into a battle, you bring a team rather than just one vehicle. With the ground battles anyway, it's a little bit different with aircraft. When you're in aircraft, if you say go into realistic battle, you can only bring one aircraft. But with ground forces, you are able to bring in an entire team of vehicles that you can bring into the battle. And if you gain enough points that you can, if you die and let's say I drive my KT-105, I get, a couple kills, I've earned enough spawn points, I can then respawn in, say, my Tiger II Henschel, my Jagdpanther, or even an aircraft. Because there is close air support in the game, there is air superiority, and so I could then grab my Dornier, let's say, and I can, bomb some ground targets. If there's bombers in the air and I got bombed out because they just have too many, ground attackers, I can hop into a Focke-Wulf or something like that and then shoot some of them down. So it works a little bit different, because when you get knocked out in War Thunder, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of your game. If you haven't gotten enough points, however, you generally speaking, if you get knocked out early, you haven't earned enough points, then you probably might as well just head back to the garage, unless you have people that you're watching. So that's the basic premise of crew slots. And another thing is, you want to check out the preset tab. These are all of my different presets that I have for basically every different scenario or grinding that I want to do. So for example, I have lower tier planes, a preset for lower tier planes. And these are basically just the crew slots that have been taken up that you can then swap out on a moment's notice. So let's say I want to go fly aircraft. I want to play just a complete aircraft battle, no tanks. Well, I'll apply my preset, and now here's my BF-109 G2 Trop. And then I can select air realistic battles or whatever I want to play, and it'll throw me into an air game. Let's say, but then I want to switch back. Let's say I want to play lower tier tanks, like my lower tier Panzers. Well, I can do that because I have a preset for that, and voila. All of my Panzers are in the garage, ready for battle. So basically, it works a little bit different than World of Tanks. Another thing I guess I should talk about is the goal of the game is a little bit different than World of Tanks, because in World of Tanks, your tanks have health, HP. And now this is a thing that a lot of World of Tanks players don't really like about War Thunder, because it's a lot more realistic in the sense that you're not shaving off HP. When a shell goes through your tank, it can it can do a whole bunch of stuff. It can take out a whole bunch of modules, and that usually results in a lot of one-shot kills, which is kind of something that frustrates a lot of World of Tanks players. They're used to, in World of Tanks, it's a little bit more forgiving. If you get caught out in a position, you get shot, you might lose some health, but your tank doesn't completely explode, or you haven't lost certain things. Well, when a shell enters the tank, there's a lot of different things you have to consider. You have to consider the mass of the shell, the effect of the shell after it penetrates the armor, and what it actually hits during its travels inside your tank. So for that reason, we'll go to modifications and we'll look up, for example, the King Tiger with the 105 can carry several different types of shells. You've got an armor-piercing composite ballistic cap shell, which is basically, it's a high explosive shell that can actually penetrate armor. And these were real shells. You kind of have to forget the false science, I guess, that World of Tanks has taught you, because there isn't just AP and high explosive. There's different variants of armor-piercing shells, and their armor-piercing high explosive shells did exist. What happens when this shell goes through? We'll look at PZGR-39. What happens is it'll penetrate the armor, and then about 1.3 meters after it penetrates the armor, a secondary charge will explode and will fragment the shell inside the vehicle. And that will do a lot of damage, especially this kind of shell. It's a 105 millimeter. If that goes into a tank, it's going to cause a lot of damage, if not completely destroy the tank. You've also got high explosive, which high explosive, obviously, as you remember, does have less penetration, but obviously it can damage outer modules. It might knock out crew because of the sheer force, depending on the caliber of the shell. And then, for example, you have APCR, which is basically, it's just a straight armor piercing shell. It will go right through a tank, but it won't fragment inside because of a secondary charge. There is no secondary high explosive detonation. It basically just goes through, and whatever it happens to fuck up on the way through is what happens to the tank. And for that reason, because of the different armor piercing effects and different masses of shell, you can see that the armor piercing is actually 10.3 kilograms, whereas the APCBC is 15.6 kilograms, and that does make a difference. A heavier shell is going to do more damage, and the different effect, if an APCBC goes through, it's going to do a lot more damage than an APCR round. because it's gonna fragment, whereas an APCR round is just gonna go all the way through the vehicle. So we'll take a look at. There's a handy little thing in the garage. You have an armor viewing mode, which is basically like Tank Inspector or whatever it is. The secondary software built into the game. So you can see the effective armor thickness. We're not going to spend too much time on that, but we're going to look at the X-ray mode, which is very, very handy for studying up vehicles. You can see that we could see the entire internal historical layout of the King Tiger. You could see all the different types of modules, the ammunition, the horizontal turret drive, the optics, the gun cannon breech, more optics. You could see all of our crew members, our commander, our gunner, our loader, etc., our transmission, our fuel tanks, which this has a lot of fuel tanks, our radiator, engine, etc. So what happens when a shell goes through the armor? Well, if it's an APCR round, let's say I get penetrated here. Let's say it goes right through here between the two ammo stowage. Well, because the APCR doesn't actually fragment inside the tank, it is very likely that something with such high penetration is just going to go right through and out the other side. It might, I don't know, take my loader's legs off or my commander's legs off, but it isn't actually going to fragment inside the tank and do any secondary damage. However, if an APCBC shell were to go in there, and let's say it gets through, makes it about 1.3 meters, and then explodes, everyone in that tank is basically going to die. It's just, the horizontal aiming drive might be jammed. It probably will detonate the ammo, resulting in an instant detonation. And so I'm explaining this because so it isn't as frustrating, when you get one-shotted. And because there are certain, things that, at certain angles and at certain directions from where you get shot that will result in a quicker death. Whereas, if I get penetrated through the front, let's say somebody shoots an APCR or someone puts a shell through my lower plate, well, it might kill the driver, blow up the transmission, kill the machine gunner, but I think for the most part the guys in the turret are going to be relatively safe depending on the size of the shell. And so my tank will still be combat effective. Whereas if I get shot in the ammo, that's pretty much game over. So there are a whole lot of different factors that happen, and as you play, you will definitely learn these different factors. Now, I want to mention one thing about crew knocked out, because getting your ammo blown up or your fuel tanks exploding is definitely a quick way to end your tank's life, but people don't realize, a lot of people don't realize how the crew mechanics work when someone gets knocked out. Basically, the two most vital positions in the tank that need to be occupied for the tank to be considered combat effective are the gunner's seat and the driver's seat. The tank has to be able to drive around, and the tank has to be able to return fire and traverse the turret. If either of those conditions is violated, your tank is considered knocked out, and the kill is awarded to whoever did it. And for that reason, basically what happens is when one of those vital two positions gets when the crew member in one of those positions gets knocked out, the other crew members in the tank will then move to fill that space. So let's say I'm driving, somebody shoots my gunner gets knocked out. Well, in that case, the commander would shift to the gunner's position. If that gunner then dies again, then my loader would then switch to the gunner position, or my machine gunner would then switch to the gunner position. Let's say he gets knocked out again, well, then my loader would then go to that position. But now, because I don't have a loader, my rate of fire is slower. Basically there's a kind of like a hierarchy of the important positions. Gunner and driver would be the most important, followed by loader, followed by commander, and then machine gunner. So basically, if your commander gets knocked out, the performance of the tank, besides your ability to spot targets on your own, is the only thing that's affected. If the gunner gets knocked out, however, one of these two, the commander is then going to fill that position, but then you don't have a commander anymore. He gets knocked out again, the machine gunner will probably go there, but then you won't have a machine gunner. If the loader takes it and is then knocked out, you won't have a loader and your rate of fire goes down. It's actually kind of simple in terms of what happens. So if you think about it, following that logic, the larger the crew, the longer, the more crew members can get knocked out before your tank is considered combat ineffective. So let's say I only have 2 crew members. let's say I have a tank like a T-26 with like 2 crew members. Well, if either of them gets killed, then the tank is combat ineffective because one of those conditions has been violated and there's no one obviously left in the tank to do any of that stuff. So basically, if you start engaging a tank and you say, okay, I knocked out his gunner, and then you shoot his gunner again, kill the guy that took his place. Well, you can keep doing that basically until there's no one left to take their spot, and then when you knock out that last crew member, even if there's a driver and you kill everyone that can possibly take up the gunner position, then the tank is not as combat effective, it's combat ineffective, and then you will get the credit for the kill. So that is how that works. And I will definitely try to demonstrate that in gameplay coming up. Cannon breaches can get damaged. If the cannon breach becomes critically damaged, I would not recommend trying to fire the gun, even if there's a shell in the chamber. If a critically damaged cannon breach basically creates a chance that the shell will actually explode inside the breach, will come out the back and kill everybody in your turret, and that's basically your death. So if you get a damaged cannon breach, please don't fire, because there's a chance that it will completely just end your own tank. So there's that. We'll quickly go over crew skills. Basically, you can see here, it works a little bit similar to World of Tanks. Every crew member has their own specific crew skill. So for example, for the driver, it would be tank driving would be his specific skill. For the gunner, would be targeting and range finding. The commander would be leadership and keen vision. Loader would be weapon reloading. But if you notice, all of these crew members do have common skills. The only reason why I mentioned, everybody has keen vision, but the reason why I mentioned it for the commander is that it has the biggest effect when it's trained under the commander. But yeah, they all have field repair, vitality, keen vision, and then they have their own sub crew skills which are important to them. You could see I have maxed leadership and keen vision on the commander because leadership basically acts like brothers in arms, except only the commander can have it. It basically increases the skills of all other crew members, or like mentor. And then keen vision would be like recon or situational awareness, things like that. And the reason why I have them maxed out is because it is very, very important. It's probably, in my opinion, the most important crew skills you can have. There's qualifications. We won't go into that yet, just because I don't want to draw on for hours talking about this stuff, because I can talk a great deal about all the little nuances in this game. But since this is just a first time introduction, I figured I could try to keep it as brief as possible. So yeah, currently in the game, if you want to drive tanks, you can either go America, Germany, or Soviet Union. And then all nations, there's 2 other nations, Britain and Japan. All nations have aircraft. If you want to fly aircraft, maybe I'll do something on that too. I have been getting into flying recently, so there might be videos on that. But I chiefly play realistic battles, especially for tanks and aircraft, because I just like it. I think it's more of a challenge. In realistic battles, you don't actually get an indicator of where your shell is going to go. You have to manually range everything yourself. So we'll take a look at some gameplay, and I'm going to basically edit out the queue wait. So I guess I will see you guys when we get a game. So stand by. All right, so right now we're in the pre-battle screen. Basically, this is where you select all your which tank you want to bring into battle, or which vehicle before the battle actually starts. It's where you can outfit your tank with whatever ammo types you might want to be using, and you can see all of your spawn points up here in the top right corner, and you can see the relative price basically of each vehicle to spawn. So this is a mid-tier game, so this is more what you guys are likely to see. Because Kursk is such a large map, I want to bring something with a little bit more punch at long range. So that's why we're going with the Panzer IV F2. That long-barreled 75mm really does come in handy on large maps like this. You can see that even though this is a realistic battle, it has mixed us. We do have a mixed battle here because the matchmaker probably couldn't find enough of every nation to give us a pure RB. So right now we're in the F2. It's a great tank, particularly at long ranges. If you can go hull down and basically only expose the turret and gun, you'll be you'll be relatively safe, particularly at long distances. Because if you see that entire basically the entire front of our tank is just a giant ammunition rack. So keeping that covered up is of the utmost importance. This is battle. It's probably the closest thing that you would have to a standard battle in World of Tanks. So 2 bases. Whoever captures the enemy base first basically is awarded with an instant win. So we have A, they have Bravo. And basically, if we can kill off all their vehicles, then we win. Or if we capture their base, then we pretty much win instantly as well. You can see the ticket counter at the top of the screen. Every time someone dies, the tickets slowly decrease. And then capturing the enemy base causes the tickets to drain rapidly until there are none left. So it's actually got some elements of Battlefield in here too, if any of you have played a Battlefield game before. So because it's realistic, you can see our sight here. We have no indicator of where the shell will fall. Whether or not we can take out an enemy vehicle depends on how well we're able to range our shots. You could see the numbers on the left side there are the range in meters. You just add 2 zeros, so the 4 on the tick marker at 4 would be 400 meters, 8 would be 800 meters, etc. All those tanks over there to our left are AI. They really aren't too much of a threat right now. So we should be in a pretty good position here. We're going to cover up our lower hull, and we're going to put some fire onto these enemy tanks. You can see an enemy KV-1 down there. We're going to try to get the range here. It was a little bit too low, so we're going to aim up a little bit. We'll try for 1,400 meters. That seemed to be a little bit too high, so we'll just come back down to around 1,100. 1,100 looks to be the sweet spot, but unfortunately, he is a little bit angled. You guys know how troll KV-1s can be, and we are at relatively long range. So we're going to let him go for now, and we'll focus our attention towards some of these tanks over here. There's another KV-1. I'm going to call in, once we get a little bit closer, I'm going to call in an artillery strike on these enemy tanks to try and loosen up their formation a little bit. Now that KV-1 is still moving over there, but I don't know if we're going to be able to hit him. No, we're just going to keep moving. We'll let him go for now. It's an M3 Lee over there. We do have vehicles moving on our left here if we were looking at the map. So I'm going to try and take out that Sherman over there. I'm going to see if I can range him. Let's try 1,800 meters. See how that suits us. Too high, but you could see the fall of the round. Because we're on a hill, the shell falls a little bit to the right, so we're going to have to adjust for that. So we're going to put our cursor a little bit over to the left. That was a little bit low. Come up a little bit. And he's already on the move, so we might not be able to hit him. Oh, it was a hit, but it only damaged his suspension. The T-34, on the other hand, is staying relatively still, so we'll try and see if we can range him. 1,000 seemed to be a little bit too low, so we'll go for 900 meters. That was a little bit closer. We'll bring it up to 1,200, I should say. 1,200 was a hit, and we ended up blowing up his ammo rack, so that was good. The M4 is still over there. He moved up a little closer, so there we go. That was a hit. Let's see. That seemed to be the range, so we'll stick with around 1,000. Too low. But he is giving us his side, so if we manage to hit him, it will really cause a hurting on his crew. Hit his track, so we're going to aim up a little bit and to the left. I think that hit a tree instead of him. And he moved again. We're going to switch to APCR for this one. Now you'll notice that the cursor shifted a little bit because the APCR has a higher muzzle velocity because because there's less mass behind it. It has a much higher muzzle velocity, so as a result, the sights actually adjust for us automatically. That was a hit, and he is on fire. That looked like a fuel fire, and one of our friendly aircraft managed to bomb him. So we're going to keep advancing. That KV-1 is still out there in the field. Now you notice that engagement distances are much further depending on the map. Kursk is a relatively large map, and as a result, it isn't unusual to engage people outside 1,000 meters. And so in realistic, this does create, you do kind of have to know your ranges relatively well. But it's not too difficult to where you have to be, an ex-military to really be able to use this. I mean, it is very, very easy once you get used to it to range targets. We're going to go see what the Sherman is up to. You can see he is looking over at our Su-76. Put a shot into his turret. That messed up his loader. Now there's another M4 over there, so I want to be careful. That destroyed his cannon breech and took out his horizontal turret drive. So this guy is pretty much stuffed. And we managed to put one through his ammo into the rest of his tank. All of his crew members were taken out, so his tank is, as I mentioned before, combat ineffective. Now, this is rather dangerous. That M4 does have a very good position, so it is possible that if he hits us, we just have to hope that he is not very accurate with his ranging shots. I just got hit. I just called in an artillery strike on his position. I just blew both my tracks off, so I am in a little bit of trouble. And luckily, he isn't putting too much effective fire on our tank per se, but he seems to be very interested in trying to cap my commander. That one missed. Hopefully my team will be able to save us. You notice both of our tracks are knocked out. So we can't even really, angle our armor at all to really mitigate any incoming damage. And my turret ring is dead. He just set me on fire, so now I have to restart the repair process. Set me on fire twice. I think we're pretty much stuffed here. Nope, our team managed to scare him off, so we were lucky. That was a very bad maneuver on my part. As you can see, if you get caught out, it is very, very, very unforgiving, so you have to be really careful about crossing open ground. We were lucky that our team stepped in for us there. And as you can see, as our tank repairs, it'll be about 40 seconds here. As our tank repairs, you can see that luckily he didn't really hit anything too vital. He killed our commander and machine gunner, but other than that, our tank is combat effective, so we are in a good position here. And our horizontal turret ring is up, so at least we can now engage targets. And yeah, so that A-20 is a bomber. He managed to get enough spawn points before he died, so he was able to respawn in his bomber. This game is looking pretty good in our favor right now. We've taken out a lot of the enemy vehicles, and we are steadily moving up on the enemy's cap. So my artillery's back up, my tank is repaired, we're on the move again. There's an M5 Stuart and an M3 Stuart down there, getting peppered by the rest of our team. No luck on hitting that one right there, but let's see if we can try and... No luck. But you notice the rate of fire is a little bit slower than it was before. That is because our commander is actually wounded. Our loader is actually injured. So an injured crew member is going to be less effective at what they do. There's an M3 over there. We're going to try and hit him. There we go. We hit him. That basically finished off everyone else in his tank, and we were rewarded with the kill. They really don't have much besides their lower tier light tanks and their anti-air vehicles left, so this is pretty much in the bag. You can see, and yeah, obviously the scale of the battles is a little bit bigger than you might be used to. There are more players, but in realistic tends to be a little bit slower pace, just because people like to usually play a little bit more conservative. I'm gonna call in an artillery strike on that SPAA over there, that anti-air vehicle, and we're gonna move up on whatever this tank is showing up on our mini-map. I'm not sure what it is. It's another Sherman. We're gonna go for his ammo, and that seemed to do the job. It's an M16 over there. We're gonna load high explosive. If we don't, yeah. With anti-air vehicles and light-skinned vehicles, it's actually probably a better idea to load high explosive. Those of you that have played, games, that's what you do in World of Tanks. When you come up against an enemy that has really weak armor, it's actually might be a better idea to load high explosive, especially with little flak trucks and lightly armored light tanks. It's high explosive is a really powerful tool in this game, and I'm actually running relatively low on my standard rounds, so I really hope this guy doesn't kill me, though. Even though he is a little Stuart, he can actually damage. He actually can penetrate us, but we're gonna give him a little bit of some angle here to make it a little bit more difficult. You can see they're actually on our cap right now. Yeah, and he's not having much luck penetrating us. But we don't have any problems penetrating him. He's obviously down to his reserve tanks. That guy obviously doesn't have many vehicles left in his lineup to really give us a good fight. So we've pretty much captured B. They are capturing A, but they're so far behind us, just like in World of Tanks, that it doesn't really matter. I'm going to switch to queue up high explosive, and don't know where that shot went. So I'm going to queue up my HE again, and hopefully this does it. Or not. That is odd. He might still have spawn protection. I'll explain that. There we go. That killed his gunner. See, high explosive is a really powerful tool against these light-skinned vehicles, but he is absolutely hosing me with his 50 caliber. There we go. That did it. That finished him off. We're going to switch back to an armor piercing. We have no standard AP left, but yeah, we're going to go back to APCR. But we capture the base. Enemies' tickets are slowly decreasing, and that's game. So yeah, that was, just a little bit of gameplay. Kursk is probably one of the bigger maps, so I realized it might not have been the most action-packed through every moment. We did get caught out there, but overall, we managed to pick up 5 kills. It's not bad at all, especially in realistic. So yeah, it is a little bit. It's a much more different experience than World of Tanks. And as you can see, having knowledge of the vehicles really does give you an upper hand in combat. Knowing where to shoot, as you can see, we got quite a few one-shot kills, just because I kind of know where things are located on tanks, so I'm able to make those one-shot kills often. And
it'll be less frustrating for people, you know, coming into this game to realize early on that I need to know where to shoot on these vehicles. And the reason why I'm dying when I get shot here is because it's vital. You know, it's ammo, it's fuel tanks, it's, you know, there are a lot of different things. And you don't have to play realistic. You know, you could play arcade where it lets you know where your shells are going to fall. I just prefer realistic because it's a little bit more of a challenge, I think. And, you know, I like being in an environment that's a little bit more high risk. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed as a phone call comes in. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see more War Thunder, and I will catch you next time. Thanks a lot.